My name is Roxy Flippin, and for my informative speech, I would like to talk to you a little bit about GMOs. GMOs are genetically modified organisms, and that's not just plants, but animals and anything that has genes. They're constantly being modified. And that's not just in the lab, that's through natural selection as well. We've been modifying genes since the beginning of time. When agriculture first started, we were always choosing the biggest produce to save the seed from. You know, you save the biggest tomato and plant its seeds next year. You're choosing that the plant switch off seeds for the genes that would make small produce, and switch on the genes that make larger produce. So it's not just in the lab that we're talking about, but as far as modification within the lab, that started in about 1953 when we discovered DNA. That was actually discovered by James Watson and Francis Crick. And that's the double helix or the twisted ladder structure that we would recognize today. And that was discovered in 1953, so that's been quite a while ago. Their discovery was groundbreaking, and it helped us see genetic code and protein synthesis. In 1973, it led to recombinant DNA. During the 70s and 80s, this was a new and powerful scientific technique. It was genetic engineering, rapid gene sequencing, monoclonal antibodies, techniques which today's multi-billion-dollar biotechnology industry is founded on. In 1975, there was the Asilomar Conference in California that was on recombinant DNA. It was an influential conference organized by Paul Berg. It discussed potential biohazards and regulations of biotechnology. It was held in February in a conference center at the State Beach in Asilomar. A group of about 150 professionals, lawyers, but primarily biologists, participated in the conference to draw voluntary guidelines for scientists to follow. The conference placed scientific research more into the public domain. It was the first time that we really saw the precautionary principle, which is an approach to risk management. It states that, you know, if an action or policy is suspected of having risk of causing harm to the public or the environment, that in the absence of like a scientific consensus that the action or policy is not harmful, the burden of proof that it is not harmful falls on those who are taking the action. So the scientists would have the burden of proof. In 1980, the first GMO patent was issued. And that was a court case between genetics engineer at General Electric and the U.S. Patent Office. It was settled by a 5-4 Supreme Court ruling, allowing for the first patent on a living organism. The GMO in question was a bacterium which is still used today. It actually eats crude oil, so it cleans up oil spills. In 1982, the FDA approved the first GMO, and that was Humulin, which is an insulin produced by genetically engineering E. coli bacteria. It, to date, is an effective treatment for type 1 diabetes and type 2. Type 1 can only be controlled by insulin, which this is the synthetic insulin. Insulin was actually isolated in the 1920s from animal sources. It was commercialized within 12 months, but decades later it only took 4 years for developers to move from expressing recombinant insulin in bacteria to launching the first drug product, Humulin. In 1994, the first GMO hit grocery stores. That would be the Flavor Saver tomato, which, contrary to its name, was not modified for flavor, but for shelf life. It delayed in ripening, so it had a longer shelf life and could save the stores a little money. In 1997, GMOs were mandated to be labeled across Europe. The European Union ruled in favor of mandatory labeling on all GMO food products, including animal feed. The EU officially recognized that approved GM foods are safe as conventional foods. The mandatory labeling is justified solely by the desire to provide the consumer with an informed choice. In 2012, we saw the court case which sort of set the precedent against Monsanto. This was a French farmer, Paul Francois. He sued Monsanto for chemical poisoning he claims was caused by its pesticide Lasso, which is part of the Roundup Ready line of products. Francois won and set a new precedent for future cases. In 2014, the GMO patent on Roundup Ready from Monsanto expired. So that was the first expiration of a patent. They, however, do have a Roundup Ready 2 line that is still under patent. The reason that we choose genetic modified crops and animals, it's more efficient. It reduces the need for chemical pesticides and herbicides. That's what the Roundup Ready is. It can actually be sprayed with pesticides. It's usually soy or corn. It reduces water usage. It improves the flavor and appearance. It can increase the safety of the food by using less pesticides. It increases yields for the farmers. It can reduce plastics. Over 80% of all the food in stores is modified, and 100 million acres worldwide is planted with genetically engineered seeds. So, plants that are productive in marginal farmland, like it takes much less acreage to support these products. It can actually, countries that are deserts and have little or no available space for food, this can save lives. And products like golden rice, those save lives. They're actually fortified with vitamin A in the rice. They've switched on the beta-carotene gene. So these actually produce more nutrients for people who are dying of malnutrition. So, in conclusion, we're going to keep modifying products, modifying our food, our meat, our grains, either through these lab techniques or through natural selection. So it's something we're going to continue to see.